Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here in the United States of America on the East Coast. It is 7 o'clock p.m. I welcome all of you from throughout the United States, Canada, and around the world who have taken the time to tune in and to get a pretty good education, a lot of information about what's going on in Canada with regard to their national security and how it's affecting the United States and how certainly it is affecting the people in Canada. But before I introduce our guests, and boy, we have some great guests, two real good gentlemen and patriots that you're going to be able to hear from tonight. But I have a message for a guy named Justin Trudeau. One day we're going to say, remember him, remember that guy, Justin Trudeau. Well, I was hoping and I'm believing that him and some of his supporters heard the resignation farewell speech of Boris Johnson over there in London. And out of everything that Prime Minister Johnson said, there were seven words that Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, and people who embrace the communist ideology that they embrace should understand. And here are the seven words. In politics, said the Prime Minister in London, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable. Remember that, folks? No one is remotely indispensable. And Boris Johnson talked about the herd. He said the herd is moving on. So, Mr. Trudeau, your herd is going to be moving into a corral that you'll be able to kind of just embrace your colleagues over there in Beijing, because this is exactly what happens to tyrants, to people that think they're more powerful and above everyone else that they're supposed to be governing. It happens all the time to these people. That's why I say for the people in Canada, for the people in the United States, we're taking effective action by removing Democrats from every level of government up to November 2022, when we're going to take our entire United States Congress back. And then in 24, when we're taking the presidency back and we're taking our country back. Believe me, my friends, my neighbors, my brothers and sisters in Canada, see what's going on around the world. Don't look at the darkness. It's there, but look at the light. Just look at the light. The movement of people worldwide that love freedom and liberty are winning. And you're winning. You're winning because of people like we're going to have on tonight. So first, I'm going to show you a short video, and then I'm going to introduce to you our first guest, our short video. Now, if by any chance we have a glitch in the system and we go off the air, stay there. We'll try to get back on. But before we introduce our first guest, I thought maybe we'll let him introduce himself.
My name is James Topp. I'm a warrant officer. I served in the regular army for over 25 years. I transferred to the reserves. I got a job with the public service working for the RCMP. I was placed on leave without pay, and I am in the process of being released from the armed forces. I am not authorized to wear this uniform right now. I accept full responsibility for what I am doing and what I am saying, and I am willing to suffer the consequences. This is hard for me. I may suffer repercussions for what I'm doing right now by wearing this uniform out in public. But something needs to be said, and I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people when I say enough is enough. I do not speak on behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces or the regiment that I have served with. But I want to honor them, and I need to wake them up. I do not like the direction that this country is going. I disagree with the government imposing mandates on us. I am not here to speak on behalf of any political organization or group. I am here for me. I am here for the people of this country. It's the people of this country who work for a living that make this country run. I work for them. I also am here to pay my respect to the veterans of this country that have given their lives and their limbs and their minds in the service of this country. I am doing this for them as well. So this is my message. We as Canadians, all Canadians, need to stand up for for what we believe in. First Nations, immigrants, and the people that were born here. This country is ours. It is not the property of the moneyed few. There are people out there who risk their lives every day. They're truck drivers, they're construction workers, they put the power lines up, they lay the telephone lines that enable us to communicate with each other. I'm here for them. I put this uniform on for them to defend this country. So I want everybody to know what I intend to do as a form of protest against overbearing government mandates is to march from Vancouver to Ottawa. On foot, under my own power, and on my own dime. This is peaceful, this is constructive, this is setting an example for anyone that they have the power to stand on their own 2 feet and make their voices heard if they have a problem. They have the right to do that. Am I afraid? Yes, absolutely I am. But I'm going to work through it. I am not encouraging lashing out with violence, with coarse language, with profanity. I am not making inflammatory statements to any person or group. I want us all to come together, everyone, to recognize what we have in this country. And that's the freedom to speak out and disagree and make our voices heard. I disagree with what the government is doing right now with citizens of this country who have chosen to go to Ottawa and make their voices heard. It's time to reach out with an open hand and not a raised fist. So on the 20th of February, I am leaving from Vancouver and I am marching to Ottawa. I've not always got along with the people that I work with, and I've said the wrong things and not acted in ways that were professional. I just want them to know that. And if they want to reach out to me, I would love to hear from them. If what I am doing is offending you, then I apologize. But something needs to be done. I have spent the last 2 years sitting back, saying nothing, and that time is done. It's time for me to do something in support of Canadians, in support of soldiers. Being a soldier isn't just about taking up arms, it's about mobilizing your inner resources to do something and make a stand, and not just that, to march forward. And that's what I'm going to do. I serve this country by putting the uniform on. I've regained the pride in this uniform, what it means, and that flag right there. But any of my brothers and sisters in uniform, why I am here is I want you to understand that you have a right to make yourself heard as well. I'm proud of everybody that came down here. I am proud of everybody who is holding a flag. And if you want to support me, I welcome it. But if you want to insult me, twist my words and my message, that's your right. If you want to hate me, that's your right too. You have the right to your own opinion. So say what you're going to say, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
What a powerful message to not only people throughout his own country, but now the world knows. We have achieved what the Canadian broadcasters didn't achieve, didn't want to achieve. And let me introduce to you this great Canadian patriot and hero, Mr. Warrant Officer, if I will, James Topp. James, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Well, that was one of the most powerful speeches I've ever heard. You have proven beyond any doubt that the Canadian people have protested peacefully. You called for peace, you called for calm, you called for people to work within the framework of the law. And unfortunately, your prime minister doesn't believe that one should work within the framework of the law, doesn't believe in freedom of speech. But you have gone out there and you've done a very good job in encouraging people to do things the right way. Can you share with us right now where you're headed? I understand, and look, I'm a retired military commander, a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and I know about military laws, rules, and regulations, but I can't wrap my arms around why the government is court-martialing you. Could you share with us what that issue is all about?
Yes, sir. So basically, that video that you saw is the reason why I'm being court-martialed. However, just to put it give it a little background, that video was released not long after I was notified by my chain of command that I would be facing charges, and I knew that this would happen, and I was prepared for it. I was able to get legal representation from an organization here in Canada known as the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and they put me in contact with Mr. Philip Millar, who is acting counsel in this matter. So, with regards to military law and justice, I am being charged for 2 counts of Article 129 under the National Defense Act here in Canada. And just to put it in a language that the folks everywhere can understand, is basically misconduct, as it violates our policies with regards to appearing on social media, especially when appearing in a uniform like I did. So I felt strongly enough about the issues, and I felt that the violation was severe enough for me to go out there and put my uniform on. Number one, I am a member of the armed forces being released. And number two, I wanted to make it clear to other members of the Canadian Armed Forces that they have the ability they have rights as well, and they should be able to exercise those rights without facing punitive measure. And with regards to, our non-compliance with the vaccination policy that is being put into place here, and that's why I spoke out. So, because I spoke out in that fashion and went public with my criticisms of the policy that has been put into place, that's why I'm being charged. And when the time came, I elected to choose either a summary trial, which, if you're familiar with the military justice system, is something that happens at lower levels of chains of command and is expedited a lot more quickly, whereas a court martial takes more horsepower, so to speak, with regards to rank, and takes a lot longer to put together. So I elected court martial way back in March, and the fact that it's being reported now is, I believe, strategically important to those who want to paint this thing in a negative light. And I, quite frankly, am looking forward to the court martial because it's going to allow a number of experts to come forward and weigh in on these matters, such as the requirement for members of the Canadian Armed Forces and the federal government, for that matter, to have a vaccine in order to draw a paycheck.
Yeah, I read that. Your desire to have a court martial, I thought was brilliant because, as we call that Article 15 in the United States military, you just go before your commanding officer, they give you a slap on the wrist, and it's over with. But with regard to a court martial, this could go very, very public. And this entire situation that they brought upon you can certainly backfire, and I believe it will backfire on the government, because the argument is globally, is this mandate, are these mandates in Canada, in the United States, are they at least here constitutional? And we see our lower courts beginning to throw them out, throwing these mandates out in your country. It hasn't reached that level yet, but I suppose that your lawyer has talked with you, and I'm believing that this thing could really backfire very, very badly against the government, because you have a very high profile name now, not only in Canada but around the world, and a very high profile case. So Did you think about moving forward that this could really help? I mean, the entire country, let alone yourself.
I won't say it was something I put a lot of thought into. I definitely, the reason why Mr. Millar advised that I choose a court martial was for that reason, so we could have the ability to call forward, a number of experts and call this policy into question. So, I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to go forward and speak on matters that are important to Canadians, and this is something that is important to Canadians. So I'm going to. We are going forward. We asked for a court martial. Now we're getting one. The hypotheticals um, are not something I really want to comment on. However, I will say that, like I said, this is the opportunity for us to go forward and um, and be able to call in those expert witnesses, medical in both medicine and science. That this is what one of the things that we were looking for.
I've got to commend you for, man, you got great character, my friend. You just said something that rang a bell with me. You haven't criticized, I haven't heard you overly criticize anyone in your government or your government. You're just staying very focused on the mission at hand here. And you know what? I commend you for that. I give you a lot of credit because they could certainly throw it in my face and say, go a little bit, well, they could say I go too far. I don't believe I've gone far enough with them. But in your case, boy, I'll tell you, they've got a problem with you now because you're a good character. You certainly have done things peacefully. You've promoted peace and harmony. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be the government lawyer in that particular case. Now, I'm curious about this. Has any member of parliament, any elected official been in touch with you at any time during this fiasco? Because what we're hearing in the United States is that all those people in parliament, like many in our Senate, they just don't have the guts to stand up and say, hey, look, we're gonna support you publicly and we're gonna support you the best way we could. Has anyone in your government been in touch with you? If you can answer them. I don't want you to jeopardize your case.
No, not at all. I realize that this action that I did has repercussions, but in a more important way, in a larger sense, this is a demonstration number of things. So when I started this march, a number of folks asked me what I was going to do when I got to Ottawa, and I had to ask myself a question. And I realized that it was going to be an effort to reach out to our representatives in the federal government, and that's what I did. So, in doing so, there were a number of things that happened. I wrote a letter, and with the help of the members of my team, we negotiated and jumped through and over a number of bureaucratic hurdles and got through a number of channels. We managed to make contact, and to that point, a number of members of parliament came and spoke to me. So we demonstrated a couple of things there. We demonstrated that there is still some form of functioning democracy here because those MPs did display great deals of courage. They went against this kind of vilification of folks who do things like that I'm doing in speaking out, and they came to meet with me. And there was a great deal of effort that also went on behind the scenes to facilitate that meeting from the Canadian people. And I have to say that I commend everybody who took part in that effort. The courage that was on display there. I'm sure that you have in your system government representatives who do not want to be identified or they do not want to be identified with somebody because of this guilt by association that happens. However, what I saw happen there was members of parliament listening to their constituents because what we did on this march was meet with people, thousands of people from Vancouver to Ottawa. And just to put it in perspective in America, for the folks in the US, this march encompassed the distance equivalent to Seattle to Syracuse, New York. So that was the distance that we covered. And in doing so, here in Canada, we met thousands of people. And we said to them, if you agree with the purposes behind this march, and you think that a meeting with your members of parliament is important, then you reach out to your members of parliament. And that's what they did. And those members of parliament come to speak to me.
Incredible. Your case is being observed by many military people here in the United States. A lot of them are losing their jobs, being thrown out. If you win, and I believe you will win this case, it's going to have, I know it'll have repercussions here in America, but it'll have positive repercussions around the world. That's how important this case is. Well, I'll tell you, I want to thank you for joining us. If it ever comes up that your character's in question in court, call me. I'll fly out there as fast as I could. And because I'll tell you, you have been very, very good to your country, your countrymen. We're all part of history here. And I would say this, that our prayers here in the United States, and I know across your own country, are with you. You ever need anything, you call us, okay? You call me and we'll do everything we could to help you. But I think you're going to be just fine. Do you have any final words you'd like to say to the American people and your countrymen?
Yeah, to all my brothers and sisters in U.S., thank you for tuning in and hearing what I have to say. And I encourage you to reach out to us in the Canada as well. Like we have a shared history, and it's important that we maintain the bonds between our two countries.
Well, James, from one military officer to another, I salute you and God bless you and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever wanted to see a hero, and I know he's probably a modest guy and probably would not want me to call him a hero, but he certainly is one of those heroes. I mean, think about this, his career in front of him, standing up for freedom and liberty. You know, I was just thinking, you would think the military leadership and the government would embrace a guy like that, a total demonstration of courage doing what he did and what he is doing. So, well, like I said, I salute him. Now we have another hero. We have an individual who had gone on a career track as I did. A military commander, and I was also a police officer. And we have a police officer who really stood up. I mean, absolutely stood up for what he believed in. And his name is Rob Stocki. And Rob was a police officer in Ottawa, and he left the police force. He ran for office, but his story is very, very interesting. In fact, his story is so interesting, the government and some of the leaders who orchestrated something involving him may be in serious, serious trouble. So, Rob, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Lieutenant. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show.
Well, it's an honor.
I can tell you, though, following a guy like James Topp, that's a tall order. That guy is just an absolute hero in our country, worldwide.
And may I say you are too, and the people watching and everyone that's standing up for what you believe in. And believe me, you are. So, Rob, if you could start from the beginning, all right? People in the United States, we're beginning to spread the word, and now they're curious over what's really going on up there. And so now, in the eyes of Americans, you're a police officer who left your job, got involved, I guess, in another occupation, but ran for office, and then you were actually, well, I'll use the word, spied on by the government?
Yes, that's true. In Canada, the wiretap laws, if you're ever a subject of electronic surveillance by a law enforcement authority, they are required by law to let you know that you were the subject of a wiretap, or as they say, an interception of private communications. So in my case, I was a police officer, and ironically, I was a police officer in the city of Ottawa, where the Prime Minister is, and I've worked many of the Canada days in every capacity, both as a patrol officer, a motorcycle officer, road supervisor, as a sergeant with the Ottawa Police, and I've seen up front, close and personal, what a Canada Day is like in Ottawa. And then if you compare it to what happened during the trucker demonstrations, which they call an occupation, we can talk about that in a second. The truckers' demonstration, the trucker convoy protest, was by far more peaceful than any Canada Day that I have ever worked. So when you see the corporate bought media and the media that our Prime Minister is bribing to tell his side of the story, or the narrative that they want people to see, it's all a lie. It's an absolute lie. There was a very peaceful protest. The participants fed the public, they fed the homeless, they shoveled the streets. There was a protest, so there was honking. But other than that, they were polite. There was bouncy castles, there was children, there was snowball fights, there was dancing, there was music, there was the singing of our national anthem. There was every color, creed, and type of person at this demonstration peacefully demonstrating. The government went so far. So just on a side note, I worked in public relations for a while, so I understand, and I work in advertising as well. So I understand when people talk about advertising, they talk about it as advertising. But people who are savvy in this, it's actually compliance engineering is what it is. And when this whole COVID thing started, I started seeing many of these techniques that we'd be using for advertising being used by the government. And at the same time, the narrative that the government was pushing forward was clearly an insidious effort to vilify protesters. Now, let's just talk history for a second. The Democrats in the US started a movement called Occupy, the Occupy movement in 2012. That was done by the Democrats. Now, they chose the Occupy word themselves. They chose that moniker because they wanted to be violent. They wanted to be standoffish. They wanted to create chaos. The trucker protest was peaceful. It was the establishment, it was the law enforcement that named it an occupation. They used the moniker that the Democrats wanted and tried to tar peaceful protesters with the same moniker. No peaceful protester ever wanted that moniker. Now, the funny thing is with the ability of social media, with the ability of people who actually came and saw the demonstration, they saw that it was peaceful. There was a big joke between what was being reported and what was actually happening. So to make a long story short, if you see what happened in India with Gandhi, who was absolutely peaceful, he brought the British to their knees for their extractive policies in India. And peaceful protesting is absolutely the way to go, because just like Warrant Officer Topp, the government has nothing on you. The government saw me as a threat. The government wiretapped me, and it's unclear right now, are they wiretapped me because I ran for office and I was peaceful, or whether or not because I was a member of the Ottawa Police and I was a protester. I was on that stage during the protest in the trucker convoy. I introduced a guy by the name of Ezra Levant, who runs Rebel News here in Canada. And actually, Rebel News did a whole piece on me about being wiretapped and where this is going. Since that time, I've lawyered up. I've got a lawyer now. We are in contact and proceeding forward. There's also the debrief of the debrief of the protest. There's an inquiry about the government's use of the Emergencies Act, which is also something that has to happen by law. Now, I've applied for standing in this post-mortem, and my application was denied. So we're appealing that, because the only people, if you look at the list of people who are speaking at this post-mortem under the Emergencies Act, are the antagonists, the government, and their cronies. And they're not allowing members of the public like myself, who actually have a very, very good perspective, especially as a guy who was a former police officer and worked Canada days and knows what the difference is between a violent protest, such as the G7s and the G20s, and Canada Day, which is peaceful, but not as peaceful as the truckers' protest.
Now,
so that's pretty much my story.
How long were you a police officer?
13 years.
13 years. I'll tell you what, that's a pretty tough job to walk away from. We talked earlier. I love being a cop. I'm sure you did.
I loved it. Loved the people. I loved the work. I loved helping people. I loved, just the going to work every day and literally helping people. It was a tough job to leave, but at the same time, I thought, I want to try my hand at private industry. Like, there's a lot of good things I can do there as well. And it's sort of a different, our life is short, so there's so many things to try.
And you ran for office. You ran for office.
And I ran for office. Yeah, and I'll be doing it again. I mean, for the first time for a brand new party, we ran for office. We had some great results. And once again, like we talked about earlier, I'll talk about it now, the government is using tax dollars, our tax dollars, to control the media. So our party obviously is a counter force to what the government is doing. They did everything they could to mute us. They wouldn't allow us to appear on the all candidates leaders debates, despite the fact that we qualified. And the mainstream parties were able to debate, but they did not meet all the qualifications. The Liberal Party did not meet all the qualifications that we did. So they pick and choose who they want for the debates. They pick and choose who they expose. But we are getting out there. The New Blue Party of Ontario is getting out there. And people are starting to say, hey, you know what? I agree with your values. I agree with what you're doing, what you're saying. So it's growing.
You know, Rob, one of the things I'm learning a lot on how your country operates, your government operates, and it's pretty close to Beijing, and it's getting there. But one of the things that they didn't expect, and I know this, is some of the media out here, including us, really digging our heels in and spreading the word. I know Tucker Carlson. I know he's done some broadcasts. There are other media outlets. I can tell you, the Epoch Times did 2-3 pages on what's happening in Canada. And what we're doing I mean, this is not the norm, what I'm about to tell you, but this was phenomenal. We got on some of our broadcasts, one in particular, over 157,000 hits worldwide. And that's because people are sharing it. So I think your government didn't calculate that when they went forward with a lot of this stuff. To the journalists who are watching from Canada, and the broadcasters, I want to tell you, you're not journalists and you're not real broadcasters. You're puppets of your government. And I tell that to you directly. If you want to know what real journalism is, we have some of it left here, not all of it. But we see, Rob, one of the things that are happening in this country with the cowards behind the pen and the networks that do everything that the government wants them to do. Their stocks are failing because they're privately owned. And they're losing their jobs, and the networks are just going out of business. So I guess down the road, one of the things, Lord willing, you get elected, is that your government will say, put an end to government-sponsored broadcasting, because once the government takes over, what do you say? That's the end of freedom of speech.
Well, indeed. And you know something, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, or if I study history, and people think that what's happening in the world this is the first time that it's ever happened, but it's actually not. And it's actually the biggest example of what's happening in Canada right now actually happened in the US at the turn of the century. If you've heard of the robber barons, you'll know what happened during that time. The robber barons were a bunch of corporate elites who influenced government, and they influenced government, Standard Oil, Carnegie Steel, all these major companies. And they basically used the force of government to wipe out the competition and create monopolies. At the time, they were called trusts. Because they had monopolies, they raised the prices, and they basically controlled the U.S. with the blessing of their politicians. Now, how does this story play out? Well, what ended up happening was the major newspapers also sided with the robber barons, but it was the independents who were known as the muckrakers, the ones like yourself, the ones like Fox News is a good example. They're big, but they're not bought by the corporate interests. And you have a whole bunch of smaller media outlets, independent media outlets, that are actually telling the truth. And that's how this word is getting out. So if history repeats itself, I can assure you what is happening in Canada is not going to last. There are way too many people that are standing up, and people are waking up now. I mean, even our own major media is starting to admit there's a lot of people dying mysteriously, suddenly. And what has happened these past 2 years that might lead people to die mysteriously? So if you look at Warrant Officer Topp, this is why he's protesting, because our Charter of Rights. Sorry, go ahead. Am I interrupting you?
No, I wanted to pick up on something you said. You know, we're on now. This is the future of TV right here. Not what the major networks are doing. This is it. You're absolutely right. And I know in your country, Trudeau is trying to stop that. He's trying to, I think it was Bill C-11, something like that. Now, he needs to know, and the reporters out there who are just too cowardly to report what we're saying here, you need to know that we in America are watching what's going on there, because if he crosses that line and begins to limit what you would be free to see and hear, what he in effect, and I'll say it, I said it before, I'll say it again, what Trudeau in effect is beginning to build the 21st century Iron Curtain. It's going to be an electronic curtain. It's going to be equal to the Berlin Wall, folks. I'm not exaggerating, not the physical wall, but if the people in Canada are going to be prohibited from hearing, seeing, and watching and making their own decision what comes into that country through the airwaves, well, then we have a big problem here in America, because that's something that would not be tolerated here. They tried, by the way. Joe Biden, who really, it gets to a point where you're beginning to feel sorry for the lost soul. But his administration decides to set up this truth. They called it the Truth Squad, the Truth something. I mean, it was so ridiculous. It lasted about 48 hours because, believe me, even the Democrats, and as you say, some of the people in your country, your leaders who are supporting Trudeau, I think they're going to begin to scratch their heads. And Bob, Robert, I said this all along. Communists, they'll come into a country and they'll try to influence its leaders to espouse communism. But once they have their roots in it, they go after the leaders that they embraced because they're not real communists. They're not blood communists.
That's exactly true. That's exactly true. And you know what? You are actually repeating. You probably saw the interview with former KGB agent Igor Bezmenov from 1984, and he said the exact same thing. These politicians right now, they think they are loved by their handlers. They think they are loved by their influencers and their communists, but it's only because they're in office. They're getting their butts kissed temporarily. But once their influencers, once their puppet masters get what they want, they're going to brush away with them. They'll be the first to be brushed away.
You know, they're going to look at Justin Trudeau as a spoiled elitist. He's a spoiled kid that somehow got where he is. I don't know if he was ever in the military. I don't know if he ever got his hands dirty. I don't know anything about this guy other than that, you know, he is in a position that is way over his head. But as we said all along, he's going to end up into the ash bin of history with his party. He'll go retire somewhere on a farm. But now getting back to you for a minute. So now they illegally wiretapped you. So now what's your next step? Is this going to go to court?
Well, I've hired a lawyer, and I've actually taken painstaking effort to find the right lawyer. And I've got a great lawyer with a great reputation, with a great background, and I can't wait to go public with what the next steps are. We're in the process right now of actually discussing that. I'm still handing over a couple of documents to him about who I spoke to on those days that I was wiretapped and my phone records. But I tell you, I'm very excited. I'm very confident about the future. And Justin Trudeau, I can tell you right now, and this is my promise, he will not leave office and be forgotten. There are too many people who are angry and want him to experience the consequences of his actions, legally, of course, peacefully, but according to the law. And we will go after him. I am running for office. There are many people running for office, and there are many people who are saying, if we do nothing, then we accept what he has done and what the Liberal Party has done. And even our provincial conservative government, Doug Ford and the PCs, who's traditionally aligned with Reagan-esque policies, that's not what's happening now. Our federal government and the government of Ontario, which is our largest province, these two governments are in complete collusion with the violation of our rights and bodily autonomy. And I mean, it's in our charter that you cannot force someone to get jabbed. You can't do that, but they're doing it. And like I said, if you look at the history of the robber barons, this is exactly what's happening. It's repeating itself.
Yeah, you know what I find to wrap my arms around is, you're right, Bob. They don't look at history. Everybody gets caught and they go to prison. My advice to Trudeau is pick up a history book and read about a guy named Richard Nixon. Talk about wiretapping. Talk about crimes. And look at if in fact crimes were committed, they're all going to get caught. And I know this, and I know you know this as a cop. You know, it's usually when a police officer makes a mistake on a job or there's some sort of criminal activity involved, no one's going to own that. There are not going to be no supervisors coming to help you. So the people at the bottom of the pyramid, those of you who know what's going on, those parliamentarians who know what's going on, you might want to go see a lawyer yourselves, because I'll tell you, the house of cards are going to come down. It is going to come down. It always comes down. Well, there, Rob, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor down the road. You think you could have talk to your lawyer and both of you come on this broadcast when you're ready to go public? And,
I'd love to. It would be an honor to do that, Lieutenant. I will speak to him. I'll be speaking to him in the next couple of days again, once I hand him the documents and we make a plan. But I'd love to do that. Yep,
you guys do that. And I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Another gentleman, and your character shines. And that's what I love about all of the people that are coming on our broadcast, and now you and James tonight. Your character is shining. And you know what you're doing? You're showing the character of your countrymen. Of the peaceful protesters, of the sincere, hardworking people. That means a lot to me and a lot to the Americans, and I know a lot to people around the world. Thanks so much. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Lieutenant. If I may, can I just say one last
thing?
Yes,
you go right ahead.
Thanks. I just want to tell the people out there, this is so important, this last part. Do not be afraid. The government is counting on you to be afraid of them. Do not. Be peaceful, be polite, but be firm. Do not accept what they are trying to do to you and take away your freedoms. These freedoms that we have been fought for us by our veterans, and we owe it to them to do our part to ensure that our freedoms are never lost for the blood that they have spilled for us. So thank you, Lieutenant. I just wanted to get that out there.
And from brother officer to brother officer, I salute you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, folks, another honorable patriot in his country fighting for thousands and thousands of people like James is and others like you who are watching across your country. A couple of words before we sign off tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we've had very serious problems here in the United States. The shootings, the crime, the things that are going on, haven't seen in a long, long time. But I mention that because the spirit of the American people still stands. And I mention that because I encourage you, with all the difficulties you're facing, and you're facing insurmountable ones, well, you're facing problems that you can't overcome. You see the Rob on tonight, you see James, and you're going to see a lot more going down the road. You're going to win. You're going to win this fight. You're going to win this fight for your freedom and your liberty. We in America are beginning to win. We're beginning to win because our resolve has never been and never will be to surrender. And over these past few months, broadcasting about the people of Canada, I've learned a lot about your country. The Americans here love you, and they are embracing you like they have never embraced you before in the history of our relationships. And the neat thing about it is, it wasn't government leaders that brought us together. It wasn't ambassadors. It wasn't, the people in Parliament and the Congress, but it was we the people. It was the Robs. It was the James. It was the moms, the dads, the sisters, the brothers, the custodians, the teachers, the cops, the firefighters. I go on and on. It was common Canadians, common Americans who decided to put their hands, hearts, and souls across our borders and to find a common cause to fight for with each other. And that common cause is freedom and liberty. And so we're not going anywhere. As people have emailed me and said, with all the problems you have in America, are you still going to stick with us in Canada? We're not going anywhere, folks. And I got my message to Trudeau last week, and he's going to get another message real soon. We're not going anywhere. We're staying in this fight till the end, until victory. You could take that to the bank. Believe me, we're not going anywhere. And one more thing, folks, this is the thing I don't like to do, but there are things that one guy said to me in the Bible, well, you receive not because you ask not. You got to do things you don't like to do, but do them. So, folks, there's our website, www.campaign4america.com. I'm going to ask you to go to the website. I'm going to ask you if you can help us out with a contribution. It would be of great help. I'm pleased to announce to you tonight that, we started on 3 broadcast platforms. We're beginning next week. We're going to be on 8 broadcast platforms going worldwide. And I'm not looking to make thousands and thousands of dollars. This is not what we want to do. I'm sick and tired of hearing people on TV. They want our money. Emails, they want our money. Politicians, they want our money. And as you know, I've absolutely, for many years, avoided asking for some contributions. But if you're going to help us out a bit, it's a real help for freedom and liberty. And all we want to do is meet our expenses. That's all. So www.campaign4america.com. If after our broadcast, you could go to our website, you'll see a little donate button. It'll be a big help. And it doesn't matter how much, folks. I've told you before, some people said they can't afford much and they sent $2, maybe $3 in. Well, you know what? That helps. That is the widow's mite, believe me. And to you, I am sincerely grateful. So that's it. So listen, Monday night, the American edition of Campaign for America, the Patriot Desk. And then next Thursday, we'll be back on again. And we've got a lot to talk about. It's a fight. It's a war. It's a war we win. It's a fight we're going to win. And as James and as Rob just said, don't surrender. Don't give up. And as Jesus Christ in the Bible says, fear not. Hear me now. Fear not, for I am with thee. For I am the Lord thy God. I will stay with thee. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers. Thanks so much. God bless you all. See you next Monday night or Thursday night here at the Patriot Desk. And I salute you too. Thank you so much.